episode of the Hambini Show. In today's episode, all the way from China, we have these wheels. These are Farsports Ventoux wheels. I've been riding on them for a fair amount of miles now, kilometers if you are metricated, or anywhere apart from the US. These have been sent to me for review, so they sent them to me and said do what I want with them. I do have to send them back, so this is about as an impartial review as you're going to get. They're 50mm C6 Ventoux. They have been in their domestic market, or sold in their domestic market, for 3 or 4 years, and now they are sending them worldwide. This review will be sort of into 3 discrete bits, so there'll be a sort of talk around about the whole crux of what a hub is, the rims, tyre mounting, build quality, and then obviously no Hambini show will be complete without a PowerPoint. Looking at the front wheel, what I've done here is I've taken the tyre and the tube off, and this is the cross section that you can see. These wheels were really designed for tubeless, so they have no spoke holes. The front wheel is straight laced, there's no cross lacing in there. It's about 27mm wide. It's made in sections, so you can just about see, hopefully, a seam there, and going around, there's another seam there. Now, one thing you note when, these wheels have seen some fair usage, some serious usage actually, there's not a small amount of usage there. One thing to note, and I'll probably rave on about this, is the braking performance of these wheels is really, really good. They have some sort of, it's almost like they look like small C-shaped grooves, almost like they put on car brake discs, that really improve the braking performance. I've never had carbon wheels that stop quite like these ones, so they're really good even in the wet, and that's the key. Now these wheels have been ridden through all sorts. I've basically tried to break these wheels, and they've fared incredibly well. Didn't have any problems. So the wheels have seen probably 3,000 or 4,000 kilometers. I didn't have any problems with spoke tension. When I pumped it up, it pinged itself a couple of times, and then that was it. It stress relieved itself basically. No issues at all with the quick release levers. They're well made. Look, that's had so much use on it. There's hardly a mark on it. Okay, I've cleaned it because a load of people complained they couldn't see last time. So I cleaned it with some meth, but there's hardly a mark on there. Okay, there's some dirt in there, but that's about it. Now the hubs are well made. They've got 6 803 bearings in them. Let's fish them out and have a look. Just ping this out, hopefully it will pop out. It's a full length axle, so you can see the running marks on there. This is, I think it's 7075, it's hard. And there's another sleeve in there, so there's hardly any wear apart from the running tracks. So that's how that goes. That is the cap on the other side. Again, it's in very, very good condition. I've cleaned it, but it's pretty much spotless. This is the rear wheel. The rear wheel has an 11-speed. This is a Shimano hub. Again, there's not really much I can say about that one. It's quite loud, but that's about it if you're into that sort of thing. There's probably more to say about the choice of tyre. Now the tyres on here are Vredestein. I had some difficulty trying to get Continentals to fit, so I emailed Farsports and they said, pick from one of these tyres. None of them were on the list because I wanted tubed tyres, because I regularly get flats, especially if you're going across some really crappy roads. So these ones fit. Now when you fit them on there, because the rim's quite wide, it doesn't really balloon at all, which is what you want. So again, that is good. The back wheel rim hasn't really seen much of the braking force. None of these spokes that are on here are they're all Sapim CX rays, I think. They're flat bladed and they're all in line. Now some people might say, oh well, they've sent you a wheel set that's perfect. Well, if you're going to have it reviewed on YouTube, then I suppose you will have it perfect. The rim itself it's not very pointy at the periphery, or the tail, let's call it, the end of the cord. It's quite blunt there, so I guess people would say it's more of a toroidal design. I'll talk about the aero performance later. What I've done here is I've taken the Freehub off. You can again see the running mark. It might actually not show up that well, but you can see the running marks from where the bearings have been running. The bearings are, I'd say, a bit on the soft side on the inner race. It's not something you can usually see, but yeah, that's where they are. It's a bit of an unusual setup here because that axle is extremely strong and extremely hard. The Freehub is there, so you can see the what was left of the pawls, I guess. The actual pawls are in the hole, and there's 4 of them. It's hardened and it hasn't really, it's made a few marks onto the Freehub, but that's really about it. It's that favourite time of the show again. It's time for PowerPoint. So let's see if the PowerPoint works. Oh, fuck. Where's the pen? Screen, pointer options, pen. Ah, yes, the pen is working. Right, Farsports Ventoux C6, reviewed by a 5-year-old engineer. Now, this is about to get a bit technical halfway through this, so we'll cross that boundary when we get there. By Hambini, aged 5. I'm a part-time plumber. I do like Paw Patrol and occasionally Peppa Pig, but not PJ Masks. Right, who are Farsports? Well, they are based in China, and they are a direct-to-customer brand, like a lot of wheel manufacturers. But unlike some people like Hunt, I'm using Hunt as an example, or Flow, you are buying directly from the manufacturer, no intermediary. So if you take Hunt, for example, they look like they are buying the same rims that Windspace use, putting them all together and then selling them off at a slightly more expensive price. But there you go. Right, they have been in business for many years, and if you go on Weight Weenies or forums like that, you'll see lots of people have these Farsports wheels. They're not sort of used on the world tour. In fact, well, I don't know if they're not used on the world tour, but they are extremely popular in China. And these wheels that are being reviewed here, they've been used in the domestic market in China for, I think, 3 or 4 years, something like that. Right, specification. They are 50mm, and the ones I've got are the tubeless variety. You can fit tube tyres to it, because I have done. So I use Vredestein. There was a couple of others that I used as well, tried. But anyway, there's no spoke holes, which we'll come to. Rim brake. Now, I measured them at 1406 grams. Now, on the Farsports website, it's listed at like just 1500. So I'm wondering if there's something that that I measured and took off. But anyway, right, rim width is about 26.5mm. And when I say about, it's because you've got a caliper in there that comes in from the side and you know, comes in. So you've, you know, plus or minus 0.5mm. It's neither here nor there. Sapim flat bladed spokes. They are steel and TPI bearings. Now, unlike the usual shit bags, who are sort of in the pockets of wanketeers, I'm not. So you're gonna get a warts and all review. Right, and I mentioned before blind spoke holes. So when you come to maintain them, if you lose a spoke, you'll need a magnet to go around to hold the nipple in. Right, wheel build quality. So I've measured these, and radial run out, so that's how out of round it was, less than 0.5mm. Lateral run out, side to side. I've put less than 1/2 mil, but the problem is where you measure it, which is on the brake track, they've put little grooves in there, so the device that I was using, which is a clock, was going into the point because it had quite a small end on the end of it. So anyway, but it's probably less than 0.2, maybe 0.1, something like that. It's not very much at all. It's really very good. No voids, and as I mentioned in the video earlier, all the flat bladed spokes were in line. Now the build quality, I would say, is really good because the wheels have been subjected to some serious abuse, and the quality of the materials that have been used are really, really good, because you can see that. Now when you get your new shiny wheels, you know, they always look nice, but go 4,000 kilometers, 10,000 kilometers down the road and you get all sorts of bits and pieces happening. Now these wheels have been tested in summer months, so they haven't had the kind of saltwater aggressive abuse that, you know, the wind space wheels had, for example. But nonetheless, I've ridden them along dusty tracks, you know, well, there's basically no road, just gone to try and crash them, gone to try and trash them, and I also crashed into the back of an Opel Astra. When I crashed into that, I sort of got off the floor, looked up, and there was like foam fucking everywhere. I was thinking, where the fuck did all this foam come from? It's worse than a foam party. And then I realised the bumper inside the Astra had a load of foam behind it. As I'd gone into it, it split this, and all there was foam fragments everywhere. There wasn't really a mark, well, there wasn't no marks on the wheels, nothing. Right, bearings. Now, the bearings, this is the rear hub. The front hub is 6803x2, but in the Freehub, you've got 6803 on the drive side, another 6803 on the inside of the Freehub, so you probably say the non-drive side of the Freehub, 6903 inside the drive side of the hub, and a 6803 inside the non-drive side of the hub. Just look at my drawing rather than listen to me talk bollocks. Right, I also measured the fits. Now, I've seen many wheels where the fits have been really tight and they put a really expensive bearing in and it fucks it royally. You know, it's like ratcheting round. It's generally not a problem with the bearing. It's almost always an issue with the housing. Now, in the case of wheel hubs, I mean, you can go from one extreme to another. So there's the best made hub with shit bearings in it is generally better than a shitly made hub with very, very good bearings in it. So that's how much effect it has. So don't you know, counteract that. Right, these are the fits. Generally you'd want M7, so all of them M7. The one on the rear hub drive side was P7, so it's a little bit tight. It's not, you know, in hubland, that's probably me being picky. And then all the others in spec, basically. Overall, very good. So what I'm doing is, this is my shite drawing of a bearing down here with my name on it, and then you just measure the outside. So an M7 fit, which is a fairly common interference fit, M7, N7, P7 with a capital. Remember the capital because it indicates the housing fit. This is the Freehub. So the one on the left is the Farsports Freehub. So you can see it's got 4 poles. The one on the right is a wind space hub. Now I would say, just based on their design principles, I think they have come from very similar designers, possibly factories. Just looking at the parts involved and some of the geometry makes me think that. They have the same bearing setup, but yeah, on the overall outside of the hubs is different, but the bearing setup's the same, and well, you can see here the Windspace has 6 pulls, the Farsports has 4. To be honest, there's nothing wrong with either of them. I've not had any issues at all with both of them, so you know, that's there. Now things get a bit more technical. Now this is a vibration plot. What we're looking for here is you know, how much deterioration there is as you ride the bike. So this is 4,000 kilometers and new. The orange line is new and the grey line is after 4,000 kilometers. Now they're steel bearings, so there isn't really that much degradation compared to ceramic bearings. If you looked at ceramic bearings, the peaks would look like something like this. Yeah, ball spin frequency, you would have a really big peak. So it would look something like that. Oh crap. It looks something like that. So yeah, there is deterioration, but there isn't really that much. I mean, ceramic bearing, I mean, I've watched a couple of videos recently where various members of the cycling media, usually the large media publications, have referred to ceramic balls, which is correct, and ceramic races, which is, I've never seen a ceramic race inside a 6903 or a 6803 bearing. They're always metal. They may be hardened, they may be coated, but they're metal, because otherwise it's brittle. Anyway, we digress. What you can see is, you can see basically the bearings become worn and become defective. At this stage, those bearings are okay. They're not the best, but they're okay. If you were to buy these wheels and left these in them, I would tell you just to leave them, because you know, you can gain a bit by putting NTNs in there, but it's not really worth it in my opinion, unless you're chasing those marginal gains. Overall, not much I can add to that really. It's, yeah, there's deterioration, but it's wear and tear. There's nothing, you know, adversely wrong with it. Yeah, if you put ceramic speed bearings in there, you'd be screwed. Someone asked in the comments of one of the other videos, you know, how much is lost through vibration? It's about 3 watts. So that is the thermal loss and sort of not geometrical loss. It's thermal loss and movement loss, kinetic loss from having bearings that don't you know, geometrically constrain the item in line. So if you've got if it's basically like driving a car down a rutted road versus one that's billiard table smooth. That is the difference. Rutted one, the car's suspension's going up and down and you can't put the power down. It's the same thing inside a bearing because the surfaces have become rutted. So it's about 3 watts. It's unavoidable, you can't do much about it. Right, now it gets really complicated. What we've got here is stability criterion. This blue line is, actually, let me explain. Along the bottom, we have a function of dv by dt. So that's your velocity over time. So it's effectively a form of acceleration. dv is change in velocity. d theta is the angle, Reynolds number, Nusselt number, and Prandtl number. Now, Reynolds number you've probably heard of. Prandtl and Nusselt number are to do with heat transfer coefficients and thermal activities. But I'll come to that in a minute. Now, on the left-hand side, the y-axis has stability. So this is a measure of how stable or unstable something is. The higher the number, the more unstable it becomes. To illustrate what these numbers mean, 1 would be perfectly parallel flow. Okay, so what you would get in a wind tunnel. And then over here, somewhere around 1,000, you'd have a combination of sort of disturbed main flow, global flow, it's called global vector, and a local vector that's swirling. Now, over on the right hand side, where I haven't drawn anything, it would look something like that. Okay, completely swirled. Now, this is your wind tunnel over here. This is probably a fairly windy day, and this is you riding in a peloton. So that's what would happen there. Now, the devil is in the detail in this, and it's control volume equals the wheel. So I did another little slide. This is a bloke or a woman. Actually, it looks like a man, doesn't it? On a bike. Now, control volume is defined by a human. So you can have whatever you want as a control volume. So you could draw a box around the whole bloke. That would be a control volume. You could also draw it around the front wheel or around the back wheel. So they are different control volumes. You could just have a control volume that was that big. Yeah? Or a control volume around the front hub, control volume around the rear, something like that. That's where we're going, right? If I go back one slide, in here, what this is showing, this blue line, is the Farsports Ventoux is fairly stable at low, which is a Diminished number, and then as, it's actually modified Diminished number, as you climb and it becomes more unstable, the wheel becomes unstable. What's happening is if you were to draw an aerofoil, just bear in mind I've really simplified this. Airflow comes along, and along the bottom it's at high pressure. Along the top it's at low pressure. Okay, that is your steady state. So let's put a plus there and a minus there. You will get to a point where the flow cannot be maintained, and you build up a huge pressure differential and it just implodes. So if you're riding a bike and you've got a crosswind, you'd have to be extremely strong for it to blow you off. More likely is when you get an unturbulent blow off. So that sounds so wrong. If you go past a truck, what's happening is the pressure on one side of your wheel builds up, and then bang, like that, suddenly collapses. So it is a transient event. Real world riding along a road is never in steady state. So all of this lot, which is where most of the bike wheel manufacturers, whatever, do their plots, is not realistic. Now, the stability criterion that generally we've used here is somewhere between 1 and 1.2 is your limit of stability. So if you look at the can I delete the slide, pointer options, how do you clear the ink? Erase all ink on slide. Right, let's just draw that line in again. So 1 and 1.2, they're your limits. Now if you were to ride along a normal road with the 35mm wheels, you would be unstable for only that amount. Okay, if you were to use 80mm wheels, you'd be unstable from here to here. So your operating window is much narrower. But over here, and just bear in mind, this is not drag, this is stability, okay? Just there's a difference. Over here, the wheel is extremely stable. And that's because the bigger you make the aerofoil section, where you've got nice parallel, clean flow, the faster you will go, and the restraining moment is smaller. Now, one of the key things that people market their wheels on now is not so much the ultimate aerodynamics, it is stability and crosswinds. This is not quite perfect, so it needs a bit of refinement, but I put it on there. The Farsports Ventoux is quite a stable wheel, so wouldn't really argue too much about that. But I put the 35 and the 80s on there. Sorry for me ranting on. Right, we've done this slide. So the pen's working. At 30 km/h, the power loss is about 185 watts. just be aware that people look at the graphs on the website. You can't really apply this exactly to those graphs because they were all done with Continental GP4000 tyres. You can no longer buy those, so you're limited now to whatever's available. So Vredestein is what I used. I think you could probably get it down a little bit lower if you chose a different wheel and tyre, well, sorry, tyre combination for the wheel. I've just mentioned it. I mean, the stability is quite good. 50mm front and then an 80mm rear, that'll be quite good. And then also, if you want to put a disc on the back, you can't have hidden nipples on this wheel because it has no holes. So you are stuffed in that regard. So yeah, bear that in mind. Right, the good. What is good? Decent hubs. They are well designed, well made. Wheels stay true even after the crash into the Astra. Extremely well made, good stability. The technical support was excellent. Now you might say, well, you got a really good technical support because you've got 70,000 viewers on YouTube, subscribers on YouTube. Well, that might be the case, but you know, I can't really comment any other way. Braking performance was exceptional. So if you go on their website, it talks about how those are machined in, and there's some sort of geometrical equation for it, which is way too complicated for my little mind. Right, what is the bad? Right, really, to get the ultimate in performance, you need to go tubeless. That brings in its own quirks, so you know, filling it with sealant and all this stuff. You can use, obviously I have used the Vredestein, but it's not designed for that. So you get better performance with tubeless, but obviously also the compromises. Badge stigma still exists. Now if you go to, I don't know, any sort of club ride, people want Roval or Bontrager or Zip. Those days are rapidly going out the window. I mean, there is still some stigma, but it's diminishing so quickly. I don't think that's going to happen. These wheels are a lot like the other stuff that comes on here. They are well made. If you took the badges off, you would you'd be hard pushed. In fact, I'd say they were better than a lot of the named brands. Right, overall and key points. First of all, the build quality. These wheels are not a budget wheel set. It's maybe a brand that's not so widespread, but it's not budget. Build quality is really good. Quality of the materials, quality of the finish, the wheel tension, everything really good. The parts to service it are readily available. You know, the bearings are standard 6000 series, none of this 15267 bollocks. They are off the shelf, you can go and get them. Spokes are Sapim, again they're fairly readily available. If you want to go tubeless, that's the a good choice. Right, questions and comments. I mean, what do you think about the way manufacturers from China are going? I mean, I think they're gonna increase their market share. I think the days of Zip are numbered. Even they've moved their manufacturing to the Far East. So that's that. Direct to consumer sales. Now, obviously, I make bottom brackets, and they are all direct to consumer sales. They have no middleman in between, and generally feedback has been pretty good. And what is your opinion, you know, on Farsports as a whole? There's plenty of people I see in the comments below that have these Farsports wheels, and not specifically the Ventoux ones, but they have, you know, no issues with them. So if you've got any comments, then, you know, open the discussion up and then we can go from there. As always, thanks very much for watching. If you have, you can do me a favour, you can hit the subscribe and the like button. And if you've got any questions to me directly, then you know, you can use the email. I do read all of your comments and I try to reply to most of them. Thanks very much, and until next time, keep banging your hairdresser.